What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Bartender Hideout here for episode number 42 of the Cocktail Countdown. Um, as you know, we're nearly there, top 50, getting close. Today is going to be episode number 42, and we're talking about the Vodka Martini. James Bond will be proud on this one, or maybe not. Let's talk about this later. Um, as you know, Uncle Bob will be chatting with us or letting you guys know what the history is of this cocktail. Afterwards, I'll be making the drink for you guys and showing you how it's done. And obviously, I'll be having a sip myself and telling you guys if it's any good or not, and if you should be making this one at home. But for now, let's kick it over to the old man. Hi there, and welcome back to Story Time with Uncle Bob. Today, we are here to talk about the history of the Vodka Martini. Actually, I remember Koen talking about this a while back. I think it was around episode number 4, but obviously he was not nearly as good as I'm going to be right now. When looking at the martini in general, because this is obviously a mixture of dry martini and dirty martini and vodka martini, it's all going to come down to the same stuff. The origins most likely comes from around 1880. This was around this time was the most viable story. There was this gold miner that struck it rich somewhere in the Sierra Nevada. And what do you do if you just struck it rich and you made a buttload of money? Obviously, you go and celebrate and go and drink some booze somewhere. What did he do? He went to San Francisco to the Occidental Hotel, and this is where he ordered this drink. Supposedly, it's derived from the Martinez, which they used to drink a lot in the mining towns, but he wanted something a little bit more fancy. So this is where the vodka martini or the dry martini or just the martini family in general comes from. If you want to learn more about the dry martini, I definitely recommend you to go back to what Koen had to say about it, which is still viable, obviously, after all this time. But besides from that, the vodka martini is basically in the same family. Nowadays, most people might know, as we call the imposter martinis or the neo martinis, as they are called, which are the likes of the espresso martini or the pornstar martini, which both of these cocktails have no martini in them, which is to a lot of people is weird, which I totally understand. But most of this reasoning is that they use a martini glass. Most of these cocktails will be based with vodka. So a lot of times when people call something a martini, it's vodka based in a martini glass. And I think that is the grounds of it. And also, if we're talking about martinis, you guys must all know James Bond. Who is definitely not James Bond? It's good. Let's go back to it. Well, thank you for that, Uncle Bob. Okay, so guys, let's get started with this vodka martini. As you know, we have made a dry martini before in episode number 4, I think. So it's a while back. So definitely want to give you guys a refresher on this one. It's going to be pretty similar, to be honest. Like there's not a lot of differences with this one, but nevertheless I'm going to show you anyway because it's in this list. So why not? At first, we're going to start off with cooling our glass, which is already cool, but we're gonna add an extra step. So in this one, I always like to rinse it a little bit with the dry vermouth that we're gonna be using in the cocktail anyway. And what I like to do is add some crushed ice and then just add a bottle cap. Actually, add a bottle cap of our vermouth to the crushed ice. make sure if you do this, obviously in a professional setting, make sure to throw away the ice. Don't throw it back in your ice well, because a lot of people will be drinking dry vermouth. So we're just gonna let that sit here. So it's gonna rinse the glass, add a little bit of extra vermouth that might help out with our flavor. That actually will help out with our flavor. Apart from that, this cocktail is actually super easy. So we're only gonna be needing 2 ingredients and a bunch of water or ice in that way. So we'll need our mixing glass or a stirring glass, however you want to see it. And as a first ingredient, we're going to be using a Kettle One vodka. Obviously, it's a vodka martini. You can also stir, or you can either stir this cocktail or shake it, as our good friend James used to do. I tend to go for the stirred cocktail, since that's kind of the more general way of that I know it, at least. So that's why we're gonna be sticking with this. There's also obviously some other vodkas that we can be using. We could use some Absolute vodka, Belvedere, Grey Goose, all perfectly fine. But I think Kettle One is one of those vodkas that are just more well known and quality wise are pretty good. So we'll get started with adding 60 milliliters of that, or 2 ounces, to our stirring glass. And then we have our Martini Bianco. So again, our vermouth that we're going to be adding. And we will be adding about 10 milliliters or 1/4 of an ounce to our stirring glass. And that is all we're going to be needing. So it just comes down to diluting it a lot. So we add our ice, bunch of ice, and then we are just gonna make sure to stir this cocktail. What we want to do when we're stirring is to make sure that the edge of the spoon is going to be against the edge of the glass, just to make sure that we can actually really smoothly stir this. And as I said, we're going to be diluting the drink as much as we can, just to take off that edge of the cocktail, or at least the edge of the vodka. We want to dilute it a little bit so it waters down the cocktail, so that we don't feel like we're just sipping straight vodka. I mean, in the end, we're mainly sipping straight vodka, but you don't have to tell anyone, right? So, as you know, we're going to be tasting this in the meantime. And if you want it a little bit more diluted, definitely keep on stirring until you feel like this one is ready. Here we go. Let's give it another taste. That should be pretty close, honestly. Ready to go. Let's get rid of our ice. As I said, we don't want to throw it back into our ice well. So, need our julep serena. And let's pour that straight into our glass. There we go. And then, as a garnish, because obviously we want to make every cocktail look just as good as it tastes, we're gonna be taking a lemon zest. It's gonna be cutting it down a little, and just making sure we get all the oils out of the zest. Give it a little bit of a twist, so we end up making it a vodka martini with a twist, as it's called. And there we go, guys. That's our vodka martini. Okay, let's have a look how this one tastes. I think I have a good idea, but let's try it anyway. I mean, yeah, like it's for me personally, when I think of vodka, I think of that it's pretty bland. And I know they say a good vodka, you shouldn't really be tasting it. And I think in this way, I'm more or less tasting the vermouth than I am the vodka. But on the other hand, I think you have to realize that these cocktails, um, this one as well as the dry martini, they come from a different time. So it's not the age that we live in right now, the cocktails that we're used to right now. This is from the 1800s, 1850s, 1900s, those kind of times where they just didn't have a lot of ingredients. Now we have like a bunch of ingredients to make these elaborate cocktails, and this is just the basics, and it's fine as it is. I mean, I think that's the main thing. It works as a cocktail, um, but this is not one that you could get me to come out of bed for at night. You go like, hey, do you want to have a vodka martini? I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna keep on sleeping. Sorry. Um, but in general, I think as a classic, it works. My personal opinion is that it's not something super special, but it's good enough. And if you want to give this one a try yourself, definitely go for it. Um, it's worth it in a way that you get to link back a little bit to the history of the cocktail, and that you want to see where cocktails come from. Definitely do it, uh, but don't expect something mind blowing or super spectacular, because it's just not going to be that way. But apart from that, I don't think I have that much more for you guys for this week. Besides from definitely making sure that if you like this video, to put a thumbs up on the video, definitely like this one, and also subscribe to the channel if you think that we're doing a good job. Obviously, we're trying very hard, and if you enjoy us, definitely make sure to drop a subscription here. But aside from that, I think that's all for this week. So I'm just gonna let you go and see you next week. Ciao.